Hello, everyone. We are here today to discuss The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. My name is Monica Vera.
And this is Angie Fortner.
And I'm Lawrence McGiffey.
We will be taking a deeper dive into the chapters Channel Your Energy, Seize the Offensive, and Prepare for None of It to Work. Starting with Angie, what is a key principle and a lesson learned from your chapter?
Thanks, Monica. I also love the book. I think it's a great way to reframe your mindset so that you can be successful regardless of adversity. For my section, the Channel Your Energy chapter, I took away 3 key points: owning your feelings and emotions, not letting them get the best of you, being able to repurpose that energy into something more meaningful. And then once you have that meaningful approach, you execute a purposeful action, not an impulsive reaction. Whatever chaos you're in the middle of that's going to derail your pursuits, you've really got to rein those emotions in. You can't let them get the better of you. You have to acknowledge that this has happened and then honor the feeling. I am mad because somebody didn't do X or X happened during this particular event. And then once you're done acknowledging that, you can't linger there too long. You have to push right through it and not relive it over and over again. Thinking about what's my new focus and how is this going to get me to my goal? That's where you want to spend your time. And then acting with purpose. It's an action, but is it the right action? And I think that's what he's really trying to get through in that Channel Your Energy is take whatever that energy is that you have. We know you're upset, but let's do something really useful with it, something with purpose and meaning.
Definitely. I loved that example, Angie, for sure. This next chapter gives us some insight into what to do after our energy is properly channeled. The offensive is all about taking action in moments where they are least expected and not waiting for the perfect time. Being able to take action when you are down or in crisis helps catapult you to an opportunity for success. I really think about that one coworker that's probably getting gossiped about, right? Taking that action, or if she's down or having a hard time, taking that and turning it into an opportunity for herself to really seize the opportunity and be successful. One key point is that ordinary people avoid trouble or avoid conflict, and great people turn it into their advantage. So I really appreciated this chapter, and it really did resonate with me. While this chapter encourages us to take action in a bold way, the next reminds us that not every action may turn out well. Right, Lawrence?
Of course. Well, we're talking about coworkers dropping the ball. What happens then if they just that coworker? It's just the coworker that always drop the ball. They just never gonna they never gonna get it right. What do you do then? I think this chapter really highlights that because we all want to think that when we put something into effect, it's gonna work out. You know, if we work hard as we can on whatever it is, it's gonna be successful. One of my points from this chapter was that failure is an option. It's just not the end. We don't have to be worrying about if we fail or not because sometimes we will. All the greats went through that. Edison failed many times before he came up with his inventions. Basketball players fail many times before they get the shot. This is a part of life. And Holiday is pointing to the fact that we can't allow failure, those things outside our control, to kind of mess us up. My second point was to forge a new part of yourself to overcome failures. Whether it's in business, relationships, or personal failures, we all have the option to learn something new. We can develop underdeveloped virtues or recognize the need to acquire new skills. That is extremely important in our transformation. We have to adapt to whatever is happening. Duke Ellington says that problems are a chance for us to do our best. And the last point is to find a way to move on past failure. Don't just stand there. The end goal is not failure. Even if failure happens, we have to find the benefit, find a way to overcome. I like that he pointed out that sometimes, no matter how hard we try, some things just won't work. Some things just aren't meant to work out. But that doesn't mean that we can't try our best, accept the result, and if failure is the result, try a different angle.
I think great, Lawrence. It definitely resonates throughout the 3 chapters in terms of Once you've made that decision, don't stay there too long.
For
Definitely.
sure. I think resilience is that thread, not just through these 3 chapters, but through the whole book, right?
Right.
Resilient in the face of adversity. It has definitely had a good flow, especially these last 3 chapters built on one another. First, learning to channel energy effectively, then taking decisive action, and then finally knowing what to do and how to adapt when things don't go as planned. What are some practical examples that came to mind for you while reading? Lawrence?
Well, one example was I'm a big arts fan. I love watching the UFC, watching the fights. And so one martial artist, his name is Francis Ngannou.
Mm-hmm.
He is, I guess, the epitome of Ryan Holiday's principle, prepare for none of it to work. He was born in Cameroon, once homeless in Paris, but then moved on to become the UFC heavyweight champion. This is after escaping poverty, after being arrested, after being deported. He finally made it to France. But when he got there, his dream was, I want to be a professional boxer. So first he had to have the dream to get up out of there. And then once he overcame the obstacle, he wanted to be a boxer, but there was no way for him to make it in. It was too difficult and he didn't really know anybody. So he entered into a MMA gym and that's where he actually excelled at. But then after he reached the heights of martial arts, he turns around and he's like, okay, let me go back and do what I really wanted to do. This kind of thing I've been chasing my whole life. And he goes back and he gets ready and he gets the opportunity to face the heavyweight champion, Tyson Fury. He went the whole distance. Some people say he won, others say he lost, but in the end, the judges say he lost. And then after that, it was the death of his son. And he almost contemplated coming back to sports anymore, but he finally returned and said, you know what, when I return, I'm just going to go back to martial arts again. After being out for a long time, he came back and won again. Proved that sometimes, no matter how hard you work, some things just not going to work out. We have to be willing to pivot and adapt in the midst of all the obstacles that come our way. We have to be willing to let go of that thing. If we want to work out so bad, sometimes we have to let that go for other things, which might be even better. In his case, what he had was even better than what he thought he was.
Whenever I think about pivoting and adapting, I always relate. And I think throughout this whole section, I've been thinking back to the same personal experience. And that's kind of where what I kept thinking about, which was a recent critical time in my department. We actually faced some unexpected staff shortages, and it could have been a major step back for sure. Instead of allowing these vacancies to slow us down, my supervisor took a step back and said, hold on, right? Talking about my chapter of knowing when to strike or knowing when to use setbacks to catapult us forward.
Yeah.
She was like, you know what? This is an opportunity. So she went ahead and she channeled the energy into restructuring key workflows and ensured that we could operate efficiently, even though we had a lot of team members missing. And when I say team members missing, I mean, we're a department of about 10 or so, and we were down to bare bones at 3. It was pretty
Wow.
difficult. Like, we were really working with bare bones here. At the same time, we seized the offensive and used the moments to rewrite job descriptions, and we are now strong and have a good foundation. We have been onboarding slowly but surely. It definitely came at a moment we were probably expected to pause and wait to make changes, and my boss was like, you know what, let's go ahead and make all these changes now. And we did it all at once, again, on a bare bones staff. Being resilient, and resilience is key in this moment, for sure.
Resilience is such an interesting context because it can happen in so many different ways. Like you said, we have a boxer, we have a department issue. This entire book really makes me think of Viktor Frankl, who is another individual that had resilience, but it wasn't the same, right? It wasn't shooting for a goal to be somebody or trying to make this. He was trying to survive at that point. Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist, and he's also a Holocaust survivor. In his autobiography, he detailed his time at 4 different concentration camps. He learned that a person can have everything taken from them except the decision to choose how they're going to react to it. And that's got to be profound when we're talking about life or death here, right?
Definitely.
It really aligns with Holiday trying to explain how we channel that energy. We make that decision to act. What do we do when it doesn't work? Frankl sat down and he really thought about, his psychological suffering, and to be in the middle of this very profound physical suffering and know that I'm not going to make it if I give up. That's what he talks about in that book. He could tell when prisoners weren't going to make it because they had given up. And for him, he understood that his degree of psychological suffering would be dependent towards the attitude he had about his physical suffering, his fears, his circumstances. Instead of choosing to be vulnerable and completely broken, which would have been understandable, he redirects his focus from that suffering to the love he has for his wife, because that gave him hope. So he would regularly contemplate his relationship with his wife, almost kind of feel like she was with him and they could spend time together. And this process of redirecting, right, it doesn't change what's going on around you, right? It didn't make the guards nicer. It didn't stop the gas chambers. He never knew when his last day was, but in taking this mindset, he was able to give himself a sense of spiritual freedom, which I can't even begin to think how you convince yourself of this. If you think about that story, and you think about the MMA fighter story, if you think about your own story in the department, Holiday gives us Arthur Ashe's perspective on inner freedom and crafting his approach to be physically loose, but mentally tight. And I think that's pretty much that overarching theme for not just all three of these chapters we've taken a look at, but the entire book. And it's definitely become one of my favorite nonfiction books.
Well said.
Yes. I think I'm definitely excited that we got of the sections because we really could reflect on the journey that the book took us through and all the different examples and really seeing those themes come to life. So thank you for that example, and Angie and Lawrence. Now we're kind of moving to wrap up this podcast, and I know we have some questions for reflection. I just wanted to put it out there that it's not always easy adjusting our thinking, whether it's a life or death situation, whether it's you're in the midst of a hard time at work. It's not always easy thinking or adjusting these obstacles. But what are some ways that we can learn to adjust our thinking to decide when to focus our energy, to take action, or when to adapt whenever it's a time of failure? So we challenge our peers, and let me know if you have any other questions that you'd like to challenge our peers with, Angie or Lawrence.
I think the only thing on that would be just within that realm of questioning, where is the point when you decide, I'm not going to stay stuck?
My question would probably be, how you respond when things don't work out as planned.
We hope this discussion has challenged you to rethink your obstacles, not as roadblocks, but as opportunities to focus your energy, take action, and adapt when needed. Until next time, keep pushing forward.